The sun had barely climbed over the red hills when the dust began to rise from the long road leading to the Miller Ranch. The morning air shimmered with heat and whispers, carried by the wind that swept across the open plains. Every ranch hand, every neighbor, and every old widow from miles around had gathered near the old chapel that stood at the edge of town. It wasn't often that a man like rancher Cole Miller decided to marry again. Not after losing his fiancée in a horse accident years ago. People said he'd closed his heart forever. But today, the rancher's life was about to change forever, though not in the way the crowd expected. When the old wagon appeared in the distance, rattling and creaking down the dirt path, all eyes turned toward it. Inside sat a young woman dressed in a simple white gown, her hands folded gently on her lap, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She was delicate, almost fragile-looking, with hair that caught the sunlight like strands of honey. Yet something about her eyes, deep, calm, distant, told a story no one there could yet understand. As the wagon drew closer, whispers spread among the onlookers. "That's her? That's the bride?" one man muttered. "She don't even talk." Another snickered. "He's marrying a mute girl? Poor Cole must have lost his senses." Laughter broke out, quiet at first, then growing bolder as the wagon stopped in front of the chapel. The young woman stepped down, her dress brushing the dust, her hands trembling slightly. She looked around, and though her lips did not move, her eyes did, searching faces, feeling the tension in the air. She was deaf. Everyone knew it now, and for many, that alone was enough to turn this wedding into a joke. Cole Miller stepped out from the crowd, tall and broad-shouldered, his hat shading eyes that had seen too many battles, with cattle, storms, and heartbreak alike. He looked at the woman with a softness that seemed out of place. In a man known for his unbreakable will, he extended his hand, and she smiled, just a little, and took it. Her name was Ilara. To Cole, that smile was all the sound he'd ever need. But to the crowd, it was silence. And silence in their world was weakness. The old preacher cleared his throat, beginning the ceremony as a restless murmur spread. Even as vows were exchanged through gestures and written words, people smirked. How can she be a wife if she can't even hear her man's voice? Someone whispered. "She won't last a week on that ranch," said another. Cole ignored them all, his gaze never leaving Ilara's. When the ceremony ended and they walked out hand in hand, the laughter followed, like dust in the wind. But Cole didn't flinch. As the crowd dispersed, he helped Ilara onto his horse, and they rode back toward the ranch, the open land swallowing their figures beneath the blazing sky. The days that followed were not easy for Ilara. Life on the ranch was harsh, long days, stubborn men, and endless work. The cowhands often mocked her behind her back, clapping their hands loudly just to see if she would react, laughing when she didn't. They whispered crude jokes, betting how long before Cole would come to his senses. But Ilara didn't fight back with anger. She fought back with grace. Every morning before dawn, she was up, helping the cook, tending the chickens, and learning the rhythm of ranch life. She couldn't hear the roosters crow, but she could feel the vibration of the ground when the horses stirred. She couldn't hear the river, but she watched its flow and learned when it was about to flood. Bit by bit, she found her way, not by words, but by watching, feeling, and understanding. And slowly, something changed on the ranch. One morning, a storm rolled in from the west, the kind that tore roofs off, barns, and sent cattle scattering across miles of open range. The ranch hands panicked, shouting over each other as thunder roared. But Ilara, standing in the rain, felt something different. She ran to Cole, signing quickly, pointing toward the hills. He hesitated, then realized what she meant. The herd had moved too far down the valley. If they didn't act now, the flood would trap them. Cole gave the order, and the men rode out, just in time to save every last head of cattle. When they returned, drenched but alive, one of the men muttered, "How the hell did she know?" Cole looked at them, a rare fire in his eyes. "She listens in ways you'll never understand," he said. That was the first time the laughter stopped. Weeks turned into months, and Ilara's quiet strength began to ripple through the ranch. She taught the workers how to communicate with her using simple hand signs. She helped a wounded colt heal when everyone else thought it was a lost cause. She planted a small garden behind the barn, one that soon became a patch of color in a world of dust. And through it all, she smiled, soft, patient, unshakable. Still, there were some who refused to accept her. One evening, at the saloon, a group of men laughed loudly about the deaf bride. They didn't notice when Cole stepped through the door. The room went silent as he walked to the center, his boots echoing on the wooden floor. "You think being loud makes you strong?" he said quietly, his gaze sweeping over them. "She can't hear your words, but she feels your hate, and she still stands taller than any of you." He paused, his voice low and fierce. "She is better than all of you because she doesn't need words to speak truth." No one dared to laugh again after that. From that night forward, something changed in the town. The same people who once mocked Ilara began to nod respectfully when she passed. Mothers told their daughters about the brave, quiet woman who tamed the Miller Ranch with nothing but her heart. And Cole, once a man who spoke little and loved even less, found peace in the stillness of their evenings together. Sometimes he'd sit beside her on the porch, watching the sunset, the sky painted gold and crimson. He'd take her hand, tracing words on her palm. "I love you," she'd smile, her eyes glistening, and trace back, "I know." In time, her story spread far beyond the plains. People came to see the woman who taught others to listen without sound, to love without noise, to understand without words. Ilara became the heart of the Miller Ranch, not through speech, but through the strength of her silence. And those who once laughed, they never forgot the day the rancher stood before them, proud and unyielding, declaring to the world that sometimes the quietest souls carry the loudest courage. So, when you watch this story, remember this: true strength doesn't shout, it endures. True love doesn't need to be heard, only felt. If you believe that courage comes in many forms, hit that subscribe button and join us for more powerful stories of love, honor, and redemption from the old frontier. Because out here in the West, every heart has a story, and some, like Alara's, are told in silence.